All right, let's start 10.2, Law of Cosines. Now we need to note that we're going to use Law of Cosines when we can't use Law of Sines. So I want to make sure that I can't use Law of Sines first, and then I'll use Law of Cosines. But here's how the Law of Cosines works. So it's a little bit longer equation, but most of the information in the equation is found on the triangle. It just depends on what's given to you. Notice the triangle over here, Law of Cosines. The angles and sides match up. Whoa. Angle and side, angle and side. Don't know why that's jumping around. Okay, just like before. Okay, so let's see where we are here. The first indication, or the first law of cosine equation, deals with angle A and side A. Okay, so if you have angle A, then we can set this up. We have A squared is going to equal B squared plus C squared, and then minus this whole quantity, 2 times B times C times the cosine of angle A. Okay, so order of operations would be you do the 2 times the cosine of A times C times B times the 2BC. Do that first, and then minus that from these two, A squared plus B squared. Okay, and then we can solve for A. So if you have, this is like if we have angle A and we don't have side A, we would use this one. And the same is true for B. It just sets up the other way. If you're working with angle B and side B, then the other two sides added together squared would equal 2 times the other two sides, do the cosine of angle B. And then C would be then what? A squared and B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. All right, so we're going to, it's not really tricky, but we just have to decide which one we're going to use. And we really only can use, we can only use one, and it depends on what we're given. So from the equation, if it says find the missing measure, so I'm always first going to look to see if we can use law of sines. So in this triangle, I only have one angle. So law of sines is out because I need another angle, and I can't find another angle. So I'm going to have to use law of cosines. Okay. So if we just label, let's say we label this A, B, C, just because. It doesn't matter which way you label it. But after you label it, that determines which equation you're going to use. So since I have angle A and I'm looking for side A, I'm going to use the A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of A. Okay, so now I just plug in the information. The A, this is the side, that would be X. So I don't know that. But I do know B. B would be side, B goes with here. So that would be 9, so it would be 9 squared. And C would be 23 squared minus, and then this whole quantity of 2 times, what do we have? B, what was B? 9, times C, which was 23, okay, times the cosine of angle A, which is 71. So now it just gives us a bunch of calculator work. Okay, so I'm going to do this parentheses business first. Do the cosine of 71, get that number, times it by 2 times 9 times 23. Okay. So I'm pulling out my calculator now. Make sure I'm in degree mode because my angle's in degrees. So I'm going to do cosine of 71 first, 0.333. Just leave that on my calculator, times 23 times 9 times 2, and I get 134. I'll go 785 for now. I know we're rounding to the nearest tenth, but in the end, we'll round to the nearest tenth. What is 23 squared? 23 squared is 529. And 9 squared is 81. Okay, so now I've got my numbers. So I just add them back up. 81 plus 529 minus 134.785. Enter. So x squared would equal 475.215. And if I square root that answer, x is going to equal 21, and I'll round it now, 0.8. Okay. Make sure you're getting that answer. Okay, example 2. Let's label this differently just to use a different equation. I'll go A, B, C. So since I have angle C, I'm going to use the C squared. That would be then, if you look back at the top of the notes, A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of C. Okay, what do I have? Well, I don't have C. That's x. So x squared equals A would be 15, and B would be 17 minus 2 times A, which was 15, B, which was 17, times the cosine of the angle C, which was 39. Okay, so my calculator, cosine 39, enter, times 17, enter, times 15, times 2. This should be 396.3, and you got several fours, so we'll just go 4, 4. 17 squared, that's 289. 15 squared should be 225 equals x squared. Okay, so this is all, we're using this because we can't use the law of sines. We only have one angle, and we need two angles to use law of sines. So now we just add it all up. 225 plus 289 minus 396.344. Enter. I get 117 x squared equals 117.656. Now if we square root it, square rooting both sides, I get 10.8, maybe 10.85, so 10.8, 10.9, we'll say. I think on my answer key I had 10.8, but I may have rounded somewhere else. All right, let's see. Example 3. In triangle ABC, so we just draw a random triangle. We have a big 106 angle, so we'll just kind of try and make it look right. We'll go like this, I guess. So this is 106, and side AB is 10, and side BC is 7. Can I use law of sines? No, I only have one angle. I need two angles for law of sines. Law of sines is a lot quicker, but in this case I have B, so I'm going to use the B squared formula. B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2 times A times C times the the cosine of b. Okay. I made the parentheses just because that's how I insert everything, substitute into parentheses. So what do I have? I don't have b, so we're looking for that. We'll call it, we're trying to find AC, so we're trying to find this side over here. So we'll call it AC, I guess, but for now it'd be b. All right, we'll solve for b, and that's what we're looking for. So b is what AC is. Okay, so let's see now. B squared is going to equal A. A is 7. And C would be the other one, 10. And now we just plug it in. 2 times A, which is 7, times C, which is 10, times the cosine of the angle, which is 106, angle B. So my calculator, I'm going to type in cosine 106, degree mode. Remember, degree mode. Cosine 106 times 10 times 7 times 2. It's a negative number. So I have 7 squared, which is 49, plus 100, minus this negative 38 point, we'll say 59. And so let me add them up. So that plus 100 plus 49, because minus the negative is going to be positive. So 100 plus 49 plus 38.59. And I get the what, 187.59. So b squared is going to equal 187.59. If I square root both sides, square root 187.59. I get what, 13.7? Okay, so that's what AC is. So AC is now, since that's what B was, AC is 13.7. Wherever you want to write it up there. Okay. Now, if we want to find, let's go to the next page. Page 5 now. Now we're going to find angles, okay? So again, we look at this and we're like, okay, I can't use law of sines because I don't have any angles. So I have all sides. So this is going to be a law of cosines. But what do I have? Let's label. We'll just go A, B, C. I'll label it like I did in the answer key. So I'm going to use the A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2B C times the cosine of A. All right, let's fill in the info. We're looking for the angle now. So A, which is 8, equals B squared, which is 11 squared, and C is 10, minus 2 times B, which is 11, times C, which is 10, times the cosine of the angle we're looking for. Okay, so we need to basically get the cosine of A part by itself. So this can take some calculating. So this is 64 equals 121 plus 100 minus, and then we have 2 times 11 times 10. So that's 22 times 10, so 220 times the cosine of A. All right, so now let's see if we can't get this 220 cosine of A by itself. So I'm going to subtract the 121 and subtract the 100. So 64 minus 121 minus 100. What's that going to be? 64 minus 121 minus 100. That's negative 157. It's going to equal, and that negative 220 times the cosine of A. So I don't need the parentheses anymore since that's the only thing on the right-hand side of the equation now. All right, so now if I take that and divide by negative 220, then 157 or negative 157 divided by negative 220 will be positive 0.71. I guess we can just leave the fraction. For now, we can just leave the fraction. So here's what we have. I'm going to write the cosine first. We have the cosine of A equals 157 over 220. If you want the decimal, great, but you want to use the whole decimal. I suggest not using the decimal at this point because the next step, if you remember back last unit or two, or was it last unit? Yeah, it's the last unit where we solve for angles. In order to solve for the angle, we had to use the inverse function. So if you remember that if the cosine of the angle equals the ratio, then the inverse of the ratio equals the angle. And that's the key step right there. Once we get to that point, you can just, in your calculator, make sure you're in degree mode. You go to second cosine, type in the fraction 157 divided by 220, and then hit enter, and we get 44.46, so 44.5 degrees. Okay, make sure you get that. Okay, and if you're really struggling, get a hold of me. We can do a Google Meet. Join in on Wednesday. Let's go over this. Okay. Let's see. I'll label this like I did on the key: A, B, and C. Finding this angle. So let's use the B one since that's how I labeled it. So B squared would equal A squared plus C squared minus 2AC times the cosine of B. Okay, now let's see. B is 16, A is 5, so A goes with 5, B goes with 16, and C goes with 13. So let's go 2 times A, which is 5, C, which is 13, times the cosine of B. All right, what do we have? Let's just punch in the numbers. 16 squared, 256 equals 25 plus 169 minus 10 times 13, so 130 times the cosine of B. All right, so we need that negative 130 or the cosine B by itself. So just like the last problem, we're going to subtract 25 and subtract the 169. So I have 256 minus 25 minus 169. So I get 62 equals negative 130 cosine B. Okay, and just like last time, we'll divide by the negative 130. So there's my fraction. So the cosine of B is going to equal that fraction, negative 62 over 130. And then remember, we use the inverse of the fraction. I don't have to reduce it because I'm just using it to find the angle. So I do second cosine, negative 62 divided by 130. And I think you need to use the negative button. And I get 118.5. Okay? So these all, once you get them set up, they all solve the same way. Okay? So the other ones where you solve for the side, we end up, square rooting, but you got to know your order of operations because that's key to solving these. So let's set up this triangle. We don't have, I don't know what it looks like, so we'll just kind of go with something like this. And we'll go L, M, N, I guess. So let's see, LM is 25, MN is 20, and LN is 24. And we want to find angle L. Okay? So we're going to find angle L. So I guess we can just call that X. And solve for X. So we can't use law of sines, so it's cosine. So angle L, we just pick A, B, or C. If you wanted to label it A, B, or C. So let's say we can just call it whatever. We can say, all right, then L squared would equal the other two, right? Would be M squared plus N squared. Because that's how the formula of those equations, they're just, whatever one is being squared initially, and it's just the other two that we're using in the rest of the formula. Minus 2 times the M and the N. If this were A, B, and C, it would be A, B, and C. But we're using L, M, and N. And this is times the cosine of L. Okay. Let's plug in the numbers. L is 20. M is 24. N, looking at the figure, 25 minus 2 times M, that was 24. N, which is 25, that times the cosine of L, which we're looking for L. Okay, calculator. 20 squared, that's 400. 24 squared, 576. 25 squared, 625. Minus, what's 2 times 24 times 25? That is 1200. 1200 times the cosine of L. So that 1200 cosine L we want by itself. So let's subtract the 576 and the 625. So subtract the 576 and the 625. And let's see what we have left. 400 minus 576 minus 625 equals negative 801. So that's going to equal our negative 1200 cosine of L. Okay, so now if we divide by negative 1200, our cosine of L is going to equal 801 over 1200. Now, since I'm solving for L, the angle, I'm not necessarily going to try and reduce the fraction. I do know that it's positive because negative divided by a negative is positive. So now I'm just going to do the inverse of the fraction. That's going to give me my angle. So second cosine, 801 divided by 1200, close, enter. 48.1, we'll say. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, what else we got down here? Let's get there. Okay, so this is page 5. Okay, applications. Jack and Tom start at a tree and begin running apart with an angle of 23 degrees. Okay, Jack and Tom, where are you? Start running apart. Goodbye, see you later. At an angle of 23 degrees. If Jack runs 50 meters, so we'll say this side is Jack, and Tom runs 38 meters, okay, find the distance between them. Oh, that would have to be this other side of the triangle. So once they get to their points there, how far are they apart? So let's just label this A, B, and C. And we'll say what we're trying to find is X length. I guess it would be feet, or no, meters. Okay, so now what would we use? Well, law of cosines, because we don't have any other angles. We just have one. So let's set it up. B. So B squared would equal A squared plus C squared minus 2 times the A times the C times the cosine of 23. Now we have the angle. So we're just going to find the side now once we have the angle. Okay, let's plug in the info. B we don't know, so that's X. A we do know, that's 38. C we know, that's 50. And then again, A was 38. C was 50. And we're doing the cosine of 23. All right, calculator. Cosine 23. Enter. So I do inside there first. Okay, I'm keeping that number on my calculator. I'm just going to hit then times 50 times 38 times 2, enter. And I get 3497 point, we'll go 918 just for now. And I left in minus there. So let's do the other two numbers. So 38 squared is 1444, and 50 squared, 25, and how many zeros? 2. Yeah. That's going to equal x squared. All right, add up the numbers. So 1444 plus 2500 plus, no, sorry, minus the 3497.918. All right, so I get x squared equals 446.082. Just keep that on there and square root it. And we're going to get 21.1. So x is going to equal 21.1 meters. All right. Example 8. So 2 radar stations, 2.5 miles apart. Okay, so let's say, all right, there's one, and there's another one. 2.5 miles. Are tracking an airplane in between them. The straight line distance between station A, we'll say station A is 7 miles. And station B, straight line distance is 9 miles. So I maybe drew that off a little, but oh well. We'll just use the numbers. And so this will be what, C, I guess. What is the angle of elevation from station B to the plane? From station B to the plane. So this would be the angle right there. Okay. So now we're going to use B. So let's just go B squared equals A squared plus C squared minus 2AC cosine B. Now we're going to find the angle. So what is B? B is 7. So 7 squared equals A is 9, 9 squared, plus C, which is 2.5 squared, minus 2A, which is 9, B, or C, which is 2.5, and that's times the cosine B. I ran out of room. Maybe I'll write that a little differently. Okay, let's write it a little different. Maybe we'll just B again. So 7 squared equals 9 squared plus 2.5 squared minus 2 times 9 and 2.5 times the cosine of B. Okay, let's plug in the numbers. So we have, I'm going to write it down here, 49 equals 81 plus 2.5 squared, 6.25, minus, we have 2 times 9 times 2.5. So 2 times 9 is 18 times 2.5. That's 45 times the cosine of B. Okay? All right, let's see. We'll subtract the 81 and subtract the 6.25. Subtract the 81 and subtract the 6.25. So I'm left with 49 minus 81 minus 6.25. That is negative 38.25. And what is that going to equal? Negative 45 cosine of B. So I divide by the negative 45. So there's my fraction. So the cosine of B equals, since negative divided by negative is positive, I'll just write 38.25 over 45. Okay, and so now to find the angle, we'll do the inverse of the fraction. That ratio. That's going to equal my angle. What is my angle? Let's go. Second cosine 38.25 divided by 45 and enter 31.8. That angle of elevation is 31.8 degrees. Oh, that's so awesome. All right, let's look at your assignment. Okay, so it's just like the example. So if you look at these, you're going to find an example that works out the same way. So law of cosines. Okay, draw your own law of cosines, finding sides, and then finding angles. And then some story problems. I'm looking at these. They're just like the example. So refer back to your notes on the answer key and remember how to set those up. Okay.